like to welcome Barry Klein and Laura Bryant, and your designers and authors, and we're going to talk about template and gauge today.
We are.
I can't wait to talk about gauge, Barry, because I always think people, they don't really want to do it, but it's the most important thing, wouldn't you say?
It is the most important thing, and when anyone tells me that they're not going to do a gauge, I have one simple answer. If you don't do a gauge, you get what you deserve when it doesn't fit.
Yes.
And we can almost guarantee that it won't.
Yes.
But what we say is that you should always overdo your gauge. So
Cast on more than 20 stitches?
or whatever the pattern says. If it says your gauge should be 20 stitches, cast on 24. If it says 30, 34. Give yourself a couple of extra stitches. So we've done a really big swatch here.
The bigger your swatch, by the way, the more accurate it's going to be as you have settled into your rhythm.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Right.
good.
And you also want to stay away from measuring your edges. So when you do your gauge, you take your swatch and you put your tape measure down. And with the point of a needle or your finger, you just start counting. So in this instance, we've got exactly 4 stitches to the inch. And if you're using a yarn where you're going to put in different pattern stitches, you can see what happens here. The edge changes as the pattern stitches come in. So always do your swatch in the pattern stitch that you're going to use.
And we should point out, that's all the same yarn, just
Yes,
different colors.
Exactly, different colors, and each one in a different pattern stitch to really see how much it can waver. And if it wavers enough on a little piece, imagine on a big piece.
Sure.
If you're striping, you're using different yarns, the different thicknesses will change. If you're doing lace, or if you're doing something with an angled cable, always do your gauge in your pattern. It's the most important thing that you can do.
Right.
There's no way that a stockinette pattern is going to apply to any kind of a pattern stitch. You just have to do it that way.
And the yellow sweater,
Well, the yellow sweater was one of my original sweaters, and it's got a stitch pattern that involves some yarn wrapping in it. And I loved it, but I wanted to try and do it in something new. And so here we've changed it from a pullover to a cardigan. We've set it up in such a way that instead of just one wrap, it wraps 3 times. So it's the same stitch, just repeated more frequently. And very simply, we just used the templates, found the new gauge, did a new swatch, and then went to the template book.
well, show us how to use the templates.
Okay, this is actually really fun. I love the sweater that I'm wearing. It fits me really well. It suits me really well. This is very fine yarn. It's 6.5 or 7 stitches per inch, so it's very fine. I want to do it in this yarn. I love this new yarn of Barry's. I want to do this. It is 4 stitches to the inch. So I know what size I made for the sweater I'm wearing. I go to the schematics and I just look at the different style details, and I've blown up the style diagram from the template book and identified the length, the collar style, the set-in sleeve, and the fact that it has some side seam shaping.
Okay.
I know I made the medium. So
Okay.
it began with 20 inches
All right.
across the back. So I go to the gauge pages for 4 stitches per inch, and I find my 40-inch finished size.
Which is half,
Right.
half for the front.
It's going to be half for the back,
Okay.
a quarter for the front, but
Okay.
doesn't matter. Half of a body back, it tells you how many stitches to cast on. It tells you what shaping to do to make the taper. It tells you when to begin the neckline. It tells you when to begin the armholes. It tells you what the armhole shaping can be. One of the big things is when you're going in a radically different gauge, unless you're good with charting and math.
And math,
Exactly. You're going to be sitting there scratching your head and saying, now how do I do this armhole shaping? The numbers are all here.
Okay. So you're going to take that yarn, it's 4 to the inch, and this yarn was
7 to
Seven
the
to the
inch.
inch.
7 to the inch, and the book will tell you how to do that.
And all the numbers, you can plug them right in.
As long as you follow the shaping, and it's all done alphabetically. So if you match the letters show you where the shaping is in the template. You just follow it straight down.
There's
That is really wonderful.
a blank pattern
Okay.
that is written just like a normal knitting pattern, except no numbers are plugged in. There are letter designations that correspond to different areas on the template. You go in and just fill in the numbers. You now have a custom pattern
For your new sweater
for
in
your
a
new
different
sweater
gauge.
In a different gauge.
That is really great. Now, what did you do over here, Barry?
Well, in that one, there's 2 different stitch patterns. On the bottom part of it, it has a real subtle slip stitch. On the top, the yarns are actually twisted. It's intarsia.
And over here, these two?
This is fun because this is the exact same little flyaway vest in 2 different weights of yarn, a 6-ply and an 8-ply, the 8-ply being thicker on a bigger needle. And you can see from the size of the squares how much the gauge changed.
Yes.
Because the blue one is quite oversized, just by putting it on a smaller needle with a thinner yarn, you're able to make a slightly more fitted vest.
And you could find all that in your gauge change.
Yes.
Right.
That is very great. Well, thank you all for coming and sharing this with us.
It's our pleasure.
Always
And
a
we
pleasure.
hope everybody makes a custom sweater.
We do.